We speak of freedom as if it's the final prize of civilization. As if once we have it, everything else will fall into place. We celebrate it in speeches, enshrine it in constitutions, and pursue it as a sacred goal. But once we finally taste it, why does it leave so many of us restless? Why does the freedom we've long desired begin to feel like a burden too heavy to carry? Erich Fromm, a psychoanalyst and philosopher, saw this paradox clearly. In his groundbreaking work, Escape from Freedom, he argued that modern humans, freed from the chains of tradition, religion, and authority, now stand in a vast open space, and many don't know how to exist in it. Because freedom is not structure, it's not certainty. It doesn't tell you what to do, who to be, or where to go. It simply removes the walls and leaves you facing yourself. And that is terrifying. True freedom does not comfort. It confronts. It hands you the steering wheel of your life and says, no one else is coming. In that silence, we are forced to hear our own voice, not the voice of parents or systems or history. And if that voice is weak, confused, or afraid, freedom doesn't fix it. It amplifies it. So we start to tremble, not because we're trapped, but because we're completely unchained. We like to think that fear comes from oppression, from being silenced, controlled, restrained. But Fromm turned that idea upside down. He said the real fear often begins where freedom starts, because freedom means you are no longer bound, no longer told what to think, no longer defined by roles, rules, or ranks. And that sounds like a gift, until you realize you now have to define yourself. With that freedom comes a deep responsibility to choose, to act, to live without excuses. There's no one left to blame, no parent to obey, no God to hide behind, no society to blame for your emptiness. And when you stare into that void, the space between who you were told to be and who you truly are, many choose to look away, because in that silence, we meet a self we've never really known, and sometimes we don't like what we find. Fromm believed this discomfort gives rise to a desperate need for escape, not an escape from prisons, but from the unbearable weight of choice. So we run toward anything that will relieve us from the anxiety of freedom, a leader, a movement, a belief system, something, anything, that will give us the illusion of direction, so we no longer have to carry the burden of self. It's not the lack of freedom that breaks us. It's the fear of standing in its raw, open space with no script to follow, and no one to follow it for us. When freedom becomes unbearable, we don't always notice ourselves escaping. We don't pack our bags or slam the door behind us. The escape is silent, gradual, almost invisible. Erich Fromm identified 3 core escape routes: authoritarianism, destructiveness, and automaton conformity. 3 different masks we wear to avoid facing the terrifying truth of our own freedom. Authoritarianism is the first. It means fusing ourselves with a stronger force, a leader, a nation, a religion, a partner, anything that can absorb our uncertainty. Sometimes we surrender to them, other times we become them. Fromm explained that people may dominate or submit, but both acts come from the same fear. I cannot face life on my own. Submission relieves us of responsibility. Domination distracts us from our own fear, but both are illusions, and both are chains we choose. Then there is destructiveness, the impulse to break what we can't understand. It's not always loud or violent. Sometimes it's quiet and passive, like neglecting our dreams, sabotaging our relationships, tearing down meaning before it has the chance to grow. Fromm saw destructiveness not as evil, but as despair turned outward. And finally, the most common form, automaton conformity. Here, we don't fight. We don't dominate. We simply vanish by becoming what others expect us to be. We shape our opinions to fit the crowd. We mimic emotions. We silence our doubts, not out of belief, but out of fear. Fear of standing alone. Fear of being seen. Fear of truly being ourselves. And so, we survive by becoming strangers to our own soul. Every escape has a cost, even the quiet ones. When we flee from freedom, we don't just trade anxiety for comfort. We trade authenticity for illusion. We start to function, but we stop living. We obey the rules. We fill our schedules. We scroll through curated lives. We smile in photos. But deep inside, something is missing. Fromm warned that people who give up their freedom don't become peaceful. They become hollow. They stop asking questions. They stop imagining. They lose their spark. They confuse existing with living. And slowly, they forget what it ever felt like to truly choose. It's not oppression that crushes the soul. It's numbness. That slow erosion of self when we stop showing up for our own life. We become spectators, actors in someone else's script, responding to expectations instead of listening to our own voice. And perhaps the worst part, we forget there was ever an alternative. Fromm believed that this is the quiet tragedy of modern life, not that we are imprisoned, but that we willingly surrender the key. Because safety feels easier than struggle. Obedience feels easier than uncertainty. Conformity feels easier than authenticity. But ease is not the same as meaning, and comfort is not the same as connection. Erich Fromm didn't just diagnose the fear, he offered a way through it. He called it positive freedom. Not freedom from something, but freedom for something. Not just the absence of control, but the presence of purpose. In positive freedom, we don't escape from the self, we embrace it. We act not out of fear or conformity, but from inner clarity, from love, from meaning, from the quiet strength of becoming who we are. It is a freedom rooted not in rebellion, but in creation. We are not merely reacting, we are choosing. Not because we're told to, but because we've listened to the voice within and found something true. Fromm believed that true freedom blooms in relationships built on care, not control. In work that expresses, not suppresses. In love that liberates, not possesses. To be truly free is not to be alone, but to connect without surrendering the self. Positive freedom is not loud. It doesn't seek applause. It's the quiet decision to live with intention, even when no one's watching. It's the courage to ask, what do I truly value? What life do I want to create? And to move toward it, step by uncertain step. Fromm believed this path was narrow, but it was the only one that led to a fully human life. A life where we don't just exist, but become. So we return to the question we began with. Do we really want to be free? Not just free to choose what to wear, what to buy, what to watch, but free to think, free to feel, free to live as ourselves, without masks, without scripts, without needing permission. Because real freedom asks for more than comfort. It asks for courage. Courage to doubt, to walk alone, to create from silence, to carry the weight of our choices without handing them off to someone else. And that kind of freedom, Fromm believed, isn't given. It's earned. It's chosen. It's lived. Not in revolutions, but in quiet acts of honesty. Not in grand speeches, but in the small, invisible choices we make when no one is watching. So now the question is yours. Are you escaping from yourself, or finally walking toward who you are? And if you had to choose between the soft cage of certainty and the wild sky of selfhood, which would you call freedom? And which would you call home?